2nd of January, 364 days to go. 8:17 a.m. Cal, are you awake? Mum gently shook me. Oh, I am now. Sunlight streamed through the cracks in the blinds and I could hear the sound of birds and the ocean. I loved the beach house, but I wished we were back home already and that I was waking up in my own bed. I tried to sit up quickly but fell back in pain. How are you? Mum asked, straightening my pillow. I'm pretty sore, but I'm okay. What is it, Mum? I noticed her puffy, worried eyes. Mum pushed her hair back with both hands. After what you've been through, and now this happens. Mum, what's going on? What's happened? Cal, she said, all too slowly, our house was broken into last night. We were robbed? I asked in disbelief. Yes, we were robbed. What did they take? Do the police know about it? Did they catch them? Mum looked over to Rafe as he limped into my room. He had some deep cuts down one side of his face and a bandage around his left foot. Your mother just told you what's happened back home? Yeah, I said, but I shook my head. How are you feeling this morning, Cal? I'll survive, I said. What about you? Rafe looked down at his bandaged foot. After we capsized, I washed away and spent most of the night drifting. But then I got caught up near the rocks at Swan's Nest. That's when I did this, he said, pointing to his foot and the grazes on his face. We've both had some very bad luck. I didn't say what I felt like saying, how he'd contributed to our so-called bad luck. Maybe he'd listen to me in the future. Your life jacket held up okay? I asked. Fine, he said. I can't imagine what happened to yours. He spotted my dad's letter on the bedside table and picked it up. What's this? A letter from Tom? I snatched it away from him. That's mine, I said, stuffing it into my backpack on the nearby chair. Rafe shrugged and limped out of the room. Well, you'd better have something to eat and get packed up, he called out. We have to head back to Richmond. We've got a burglary to deal with. Home, Flood Street, Richmond, 2:21 p.m. The four of us stood in shock amid the mess in our house. The place looked as though it had been turned upside down, literally. The couch and chairs were overturned, books had been knocked off the shelves and were lying ankle deep on the floorboards. Some of the paintings and Dad's framed photographs were on the floor, glass shattered, others hung at crooked angles. The blinds and curtains had all been torn down. The place was trashed. We were all speechless. Our home wasn't a mansion like Rafe's enormous place, but over the years Mum and Dad had spent a lot of time getting it really nice, with polished floors, high timber ceilings and tall windows opening onto the back garden. Now it looked like a garbage dump. The kitchen had also been totaled. Plates were smashed and cutlery was lying everywhere. The doors to the garden were swinging wide open and papers from inside were flying around the timber decking. Oh my God, cried Mum. I can't believe this. What next? She leaned over and started picking up pieces of her favourite teapot. I stood there, helpless, wishing I knew what to do. I'll find you a new teapot, Mum, I said, trying to help her with the broken china. It's not fair, sobbed Gabby, hugging Mum's waist. What are we going to do? What can we do but start the clean-up, I said, grabbing the broom and throwing it to Rafe, who caught it deftly. Mum smiled at me. That's exactly what your father would have said. I'll check the grounds, said Rafe, throwing the broom right back to me and heading for the backyard. I'll look for clues as to who did this, find out how they got in here. What about the police? Mum asked, her big green eyes filling with tears. It's been a while, Win, Rafe replied, since the police attended house burglaries. Maybe I should have been grateful that Rafe was there to help us, but I just couldn't be. There was something about him that I didn't like. Maybe I was angry with him for looking like Dad, but not being Dad. He was sort of doing Dad things, like helping Mum cope through the last few months and taking over the business of the estate. But most of the time I found myself wishing he'd disappear. Why did they do this? Cried Gabby. We're not even rich. Mum walked around, pale and silent, picking up chairs and standing them upright again. I followed her through the chaos and into her bedroom, and again we stopped in shock. All her drawers had been pulled out and the clothes from her wardrobe lay in piles all over the carpet. No, Mum cried, they've even gone through Tom's things. The suitcase that had arrived by sea mail from Ireland late last year, sent over by my dad's landlady with the rest of his stuff, lay wide open, its contents scattered. Mum hadn't been able to face going through Dad's stuff, and until now his suitcase had stood quiet and unopened in the corner of the bedroom. I could see some of his clothes, the big grey-green jumper he used to wear when he'd take me paragliding, his jeans, the colourful socks Gabby gave him with the Disney characters on them, his flannelette pyjamas and some of his old sneakers. Mum fell to her knees and pulled the big jumper to her, hugging it and sobbing. I knelt beside her, cringing in pain from my injuries, and put my arm round her. "Don't cry, Mum, please don't cry." It was a stupid thing to say. I felt like crying too. I never knew what to say to her when she was sad. "Who do they think they are, breaking into other people's houses like this, turning our lives and our private things upside down, like we haven't been through enough?" Now anger blazed on her face as she started stuffing things back into the suitcase. "My room's like this too," Gabby said, crying in the doorway. I watched my mum pull herself together. She sniffed back tears and held out her arms to Gabby. "Come on, sweetie. Try and make a start in your room," she said, "and as soon as we've finished in here, we'll come and help you." Mum and I began to clean up in her room. I found something lying under one of Dad's T-shirts that turned out to be an old, worn, leather-hinged jewellery box. Inside, on fraying black silk, was a deep oval indent where some large piece of jewellery must once have been. It was empty now. I showed it to Mum. "Whatever was in here is gone," I said. "What was it?" Mum took the jewellery box from me and closely looked it over. "I don't know. I've never seen this before. Where did you find it?" "Just here underneath Dad's T-shirt. Must have been in the suitcase." "Maybe what was in it has fallen out." We searched everywhere, but whatever had been in that box was definitely gone. Mum clutched the box close. "Your dad must have bought it for me as a present," she said. "And of all the things in this house, those damn thieves have taken it. His last gift to me, and now I'll never even know what it was." "The police might be able to get it back," I said. Mum looked at me with fear in her face. "But Cal," she said, "how did the thieves know about the jewellery box in Dad's suitcase when I didn't even know about it?" She was right. Was this the only thing the thieves had stolen from our house? Or, and I thought of Dad's warnings in his last letter, had the contents of this old jewellery box been their target all along? This was quickly starting to look like something far more sinister than a break-in by a couple of petty crims trying to make a buck. For a moment I wondered if I should tell Mum about Dad's letter and the warnings from the crazy guy that chased me on the street New Year's Eve. One look at her changed my mind instantly. She was far too stressed out. Instead, I went back to searching through Dad's things. "What's this?" I asked, pulling out a transparent sheet of paper from the mesh sleeve in the suitcase. It looks just like that. "What's Gamanna and Kilfarney?" I asked. "I don't know," said Mum, blowing her nose. "People he met in Ireland?" When Mum turned back to the floor, I put this transparent paper in my pocket. Something told me it could be important, like the drawing of the angel. 4:41 p.m. "When I called the police," Rafe announced to us in the kitchen, "they said to make an inventory of everything that was taken. There's a chance that something stolen from here might turn up in a pawn shop somewhere later." "Nothing's been stolen from my room," I said. As I had suspected, nothing of mine seemed to be missing. Everything looked trashed and thrown about, but my laptop, DVDs and CD player was still there on my desk. "Nothing's gone from my room either," said Gabby, climbing onto one of the kitchen stools. Rafe closed the sliding door behind him and Mum poured him a cup of tea. We'd eaten almost a whole packet of chocolate biscuits, left untouched by the thieves. "That's very strange," said Rafe. "Everything seems to be in order outside too, apart from the laundry door, which is where they got in." "Rafe," said Mum, "there's an empty jewellery box in Tom's suitcase from Ireland. I don't know what was in it or if anything ever was in it." "What suitcase? What jewellery?" asked Rafe anxiously. I stared at my uncle, wondering why he was suddenly so interested. "What is it, Rafe?" said Mum, putting her tea down. "You look upset." "How am I supposed to handle my brother's estate efficiently, Win, when I don't even know about the arrival of a suitcase from Ireland?" "I would have mentioned the box to you if I'd known about it," said Mum. "But after everything that had happened, I didn't even want to touch that bag when it arrived. It's not important anyway. There's nothing in it that would have any bearing on the estate, Rafe. Just Tom's clothes and some personal items." Mum's voice caught on the last few words. But you mentioned a jewellery box, Rafe insisted. Any jewellery should be inventoried. Well, it can't be, I said, because whatever was in there is gone. Rafe shook his head and muttered something, then limped out of the kitchen, abandoning his cup of tea. Gabby nudged me. What's his problem? She whispered. He's always been strange, I whispered back. I guess all of this has just made him even stranger. See you tomorrow for the 3rd of January.